Welcome back to the channel. Steven here. This video is going to suck. It's going to suck because we have to talk about some legislative issues that are potentially going to impact us as cigar smokers. So I'm going to light one up and we'll talk about it. I've taken a considerable amount of time to read these assembly bills that were recently signed by our California governor, Gavin Newsom, and I have some real concerns about them. I think that even in recent conversations with some of the other guys here on YouTube, there's a lot of misunderstandings about what these assembly bills aim to do. In 2022 in California voters passed legislation or passed a vote that affected flavored tobacco availability here in California. So that's been out since 2022. There we go. And these bills were kind of proposed in a way that it made it seem like they were just an additional step on the front of making sure that the youth don't get a hold of flavored tobacco items. They wrote in some stipulations making it seem like premium cigars would be excluded from this, and I don't really think they are. So let's go through it. There's the full text. I've gone through. Each of these takes about, if you spend a lot of detail, about an hour to go through them. So I've gone through both of these texts of the bill. I've taken some notes. I'm going to go through this Public Health Law Center article. It does a nice summary. And so we'll go through each of their bullet points and we'll compare to my notes and see if they missed anything. All right. So this was from September. This was when these bills were released, or rather signed. And they note that here, California recently passed two new laws in this session, AB 3218 and SB, Senate Bill 1230. Together, these laws close loopholes. They're calling them loopholes in the SB 793. This was the one preventing retail sale of most flavored tobacco products. And so they're saying that this is just strengthening and streamlining the enforcement against prohibitive flavored tobacco product sales. Changes to go into effect January 1, 2025, fully implemented no later than December 31st, 2025. So full implementation within about 13 months from now. So the way that they make that initial paragraph seem like, it's just, we're trying to keep working on that thing that the voters passed. And I'll show you how this is not what the voters passed. So what's happening here in AB 3218 is they're creating this unflavored tobacco list. So we're going to refer to that as the UTL. And this is going to be a list that's administered by the state attorney general. The UTL is going to contain only tobacco products that lack characterizing flavors. So that's an interesting statement because we know that we've talked about this prior legislation removing the availability of flavored items, but now we're going to keep a list of all the unflavored items. Seems like we're going down the wrong way, but we'll get into that. So I say here, any product that is not on the UTL will be deemed a prohibited flavored tobacco product for the purposes of California's flavored tobacco product sales restriction. So that tells you any product not on the UTL. So it's not setting a default that non-flavored products are exempt already. They're saying now you've got to be on a special list that we're making, otherwise you get lumped in with the flavored guys. Okay. To get a product on the UTL, manufacturers and importers must certify to the AG's office under penalty of perjury that their products are unflavored. Based on those certifications and other evidence, including manufacturers' marketing of the products, so if they say in the marketing that you're going to taste certain flavors, they're going to have to prove to the Attorney General that these items are not flavored. So nobody really knows what that means. Whether a claim of certain flavor profiles or tasting notes might be lumped into that, who knows? They say, based on those certifications and other evidence, including manufacturers' marketing of the products, AG will determine which products belong on the UTL. So if the Attorney General decides that your particular tobacco product, as a manufacturer or distributor, they make that decision. The Attorney General's office is tasked with establishing regulations that will generate the creation of the list. The statute requires the UTL to be published on or before end of next year. Permits to the AG to prohibit unauthorized e-cigarettes from appearing on the list. They're allowed to keep products off the UTL if they've not received an FDA authorization. It's fine. I'm not here to address e-cigarette issues. They expand and clarify restriction on delivery sales. So I was talking to Hugo from Hugo Smokes, and we'll probably talk a little bit more about it on the live this Friday that's coming up. So that'll be on Friday the 29th of November in 2024, if you're watching this video in that year. I think a lot of folks were under the assumption that this was not going to affect delivery sales. So yeah, you know what? California's doing all kinds of funky restrictions, and they're creating this unnecessary list for unflavored items that manufacturers, distributors are going to have to opt into and apply for and pay for, and we'll get into more of that. But you know, I can still order from out of state. Sure. Except they covered that. So here they're saying, expands and clarifies restrictions on delivery sales. The change in the law explicitly prohibit delivery sellers in California, including anyone that sells products through the internet or via remote delivery, from selling tobacco products that are not on the UTL. Just as importantly, it requires all delivery sellers to be licensed under state law and to abide by any state or local tobacco control laws, as if the delivery sale occurred entirely within the jurisdiction. So if you've got a really cool tobacco shop in Ohio, you're following these rules too. Thus, any provisions in local tobacco retail licensing ordinance will automatically apply with equal force to online and delivery sales. So there goes that potential loophole. Furthermore, they penalize manufacturers, distributors, wholesalers, and delivery sellers who violate the UTL's provisions. So if a manufacturer or importer had no reasonable basis to certify their product lacked a characterizing flavor, the AG can seek penalties up to $50,000. And distributors, wholesalers, and delivery sellers are liable for fines ranging from $2,000 for a first violation up to $10,000 for the fifth violation within a 5-year period. So they're keeping you to a 5-year period for each prohibited tobacco product that is sold in violation to the UTL law. So each infraction, you get 5 in 5 years at a very expensive cost. There's an increase in the penalties for selling tobacco products to people under 21. Currently, and this is in the second bill here in 1230. Currently, penalties under the Stake Act range from $400 for a first violation up to $6,000 for a fifth violation in a 5-year period. Penalties will increase to $1,000 for first violation up to $20,000 for the fifth violation. And the second part of that second bill, it does this. And so this is kind of interesting. We're going to change the rules and we're going to increase the penalties all in one fell swoop. We don't give anybody any concessions there. They repealed the state provision permitting the sale of tobacco products to military personnel. So for those of you who don't know, military personnel who were under the age of 21, but at least 18, were able to purchase tobacco products. And I think that's totally reasonable. If you can fight and die for your country, you can buy whatever the hell you want. So current state law prohibits the sale of tobacco to anyone under 21 unless the person is in the military. Importantly, despite the exemption in state law, the federal law has set across the board minimum legal sales of 21 since 2019. So the state level exemption is no longer valid. The law brings state law in conformity with federal law by repealing the provision, eliminating confusion, and making it clear that retailers cannot sell to anyone under 21. Fine, but as you're making this clear, you're also increasing penalties at the same time. That doesn't sit well with me, but that's just me. I think there have been plenty of talk recently about the benefit of having states control certain components of their law, but in any case, they're choosing to make sure that we're in line with federal regulation. Okay, great. Authorizes the seizure of prohibited flavored products. The California Department of Tax and Free Administration or any other enforcing agency, including local law enforcement, will be authorized to seize prohibited flavor products from retailers and wholesalers and to impose a penalty of up to $50 per package of flavored tobacco products or tobacco product flavor enhancers. And I read through this section. They do define individual package as any package that is prepared for retail. So whether that is a single carton or a single packet of a cigarette, for example, or a whole box of cigars is one penalty. But this is a per item penalty, so that could be potentially huge. This updates the definition of characterizing flavor to include sensation products. So menthol and cooling and all of these things that get described, they're talking about that here. Both laws contain provisions updating the definition of characterizing flavor in the Health and Safety Code to include products that produce a cooling sensation, which should explicitly capture the new non-menthol sensation products in the industry. It expands the definition of nicotine. So both laws define nicotine under the state law to include synthetically derived nicotine and nicotine analogs, which should encompass certain products. I'm not interested in that. We're talking about cigars here. And it preserves local authority. The laws are not preemptive, and local jurisdictions can enact their own flavor policies, and as long as they're more restrictive than state law. So this gives them a baseline. And so what do they say we need to know? Most of the law's provisions enact changes at the state level. So to the extent local ordinances incorporate state definitions or enforcement provisions, public health advocates should review the new laws carefully. Otherwise, laws simply give local jurisdictions more power and authority to combat the commercial tobacco epidemic. They provide new tools to enforce against prohibited flavor products, to capture novel products produced by the industry, and to regulate online or delivery sales. These laws create a watershed moment in California's fight against commercial... Yeah, whatever. Okay. So the interesting thing here is people have been talking about, well, they don't have a way to enforce this. They don't really have a regulatory agency, and that's not true. The text of the bill in 3218 specifically stipulates local law enforcement and the public health department. I didn't know the public health department had a police force, but here we go. So local law enforcement. So for those of you who are police officers out there, keep this in mind. You're the one they think is enforcing this. The law has a whole provision as to how much notice needs to be given, how often you can investigate businesses. And so they are expecting that you can go in and do this investigation yourself as an officer of the law. So let's go through and see what I might have picked out that I thought was important. So talked about how it works a little bit. No characterizing flavor. So cigars are going to need to be on this list if they meet certain criteria. So we'll go into which of your cigars are going to have to be on this list, and some of them are. I think actually quite a lot of them are. And I think the biggest thing on the side of the manufacturers and distributors is that they are going to have to pay to be on this list, and they're going to have to pay annually. So this creates some problems for you. The manufacturers, some of them will simply not want to pay. Some of them will pay and pass on the cost to you. So items sold to Californians will inherently cost more. Might need to relight this a little bit here. I'm chattering away. The $1,000 that they're talking about here isn't per company, per distributor, per manufacturer. It's per item. So per SKU. So for each line of a cigar in a brand, each one of those lines will require a registration. So imagine that. Some of your favorite brands, CAO, Dunbarton, whatever, they have tons of different lines of cigar offerings. And for each one of those that is going to be registered with the state of California, they're going to pay up to, it's the law, legal language says up to $1,000 per. So that's a major problem. And even if a manufacturer decides to do it, do you think they're going to do it for every special release, every LE? I doubt it. I think that this particular piece of legislation is likely going to mean that Californians are going to lose access to specific limited runs. Why would a company generate a couple hundred boxes or 1,000 box run and then set aside a certain portion of it that they're going to have to pay a special registration fee? They're going to have to, essentially the way that the legal language is written, they're going to have to designate a person within their company to work with the AG's office to complete the application, to pay the fees, and to essentially negotiate with them, because the onus is, they're saying the onus is upon the distributor and manufacturer to prove that this item doesn't have flavoring. And so, and then the AG is the one that gets to decide. So this isn't up to the people who are applying. In any case, it creates a really high bar for sale of tobacco in California. Now, there's a section in here about exemptions. And so this is what I think a lot of folks were saying. Well, premium cigars are not part of this. Yeah, they are. And I'll explain. So their narrow exemption here to exempt premium cigars and loose leaf tobacco. What they're saying here is that the premium cigar must be handmade. Sure, yeah, if we're smoking premium cigars, we're smoking handmade cigars wrapped entirely in whole tobacco leaf. And here's the kicker. A cost at wholesale of at least $12. And this is why I was poking a little fun at Hugo on his live last Friday, because he was smoking a $5 Don Pepin, and I don't remember the line, but a $5 cigar is not exempt. The wholesale cost of the cigar has to be at least $12. So what you're talking about here is a retail cigar that you're probably paying around $24 or more for. So everything under a wholesale price of $12 has to be registered on this UTL. And this is the problem. You are going to see that the stock and availability of different lines of cigars in your retail shops, whether online, because remember online's included, or at your B&Ms, at your brick and mortar stores, is going to be drastically reduced. The other thing is you're not even going to be able to enjoy the dwindling supply, because the law specifically says that this at the start date of this, existing supply is actually eligible for seizure and destruction. So they can actually seize unregistered items and destroy them, and you have no recourse for that. So imagine the impact on retailers who have brought in and paid for a supply to sell you, and a portion of that, if the manufacturer decided that they were not going to participate in this nonsense, now the retailer's stuck. This has a major business impact. And then touching further on the retail side, the retailers are now also responsible, because now we've said, oh yeah, okay, this is, the manufacturers, distributors, they've got to register, they got to get their stuff on the UTL, but the retailers are also said to be responsible for ensuring they only sell products that are on the UTL. So now the retailer has to keep track of something that has to be renewed annually. So they have to keep track as to whether or not the manufacturers or distributors have actually done their due diligence in subsequent years. They might have registered it the first year, but not thereafter. And now they're saying that there are penalties to the retailer as well. It's very, very problematic. And there's that $50 per package fine, right? We talked about that. And then there are issues with the repeated violations. So if they have multiple violations, they can actually lose their licenses, their business licenses. And so it's a 3-strike the way that this one is written. Whereas the 1230 was a 5-tier penalty system, in the 3218, AB 3218, it was a kind of a three strikes you're out the way it was written. And to be clear, I'm not a legal scholar. I'm just a dude who smokes cigars on the internet. Take this with a grain of salt, but I also do know how to read. So there's that. And then kind of the last piece that I wanted to point out on this for 3218 was the potential burden on law enforcement. Like you're saying that the way it's written, it says the Department of Public Health and local law enforcement are the entities that are responsible for enforcement of this. Really? Where do you think that the police have time to be investigating and being the regulating arm, the enforcement arm of this nonsense? None of this makes sense. And we've talked about kind of the issues around SB 1230 that they're saying that, well, our goal is to just kind of be in line with the federal regulation. Okay, fine. But why at the same time as you're trying to bring us to the federal standard, are you also increasing penalties? I don't know that this makes sense that doing those two things at the same time. But in any case, I generally, although the regulation has changed on the age and military exemptions not a thing anymore, I personally think that, again, if you're going to fight and die for your country, we thank you for your service, and you should be able to buy whatever the hell you want. Anyway, so what are the combined impacts here of these pieces of legislation? Together, they're going to create basically a near impossible regulatory environment for manufacturers and retailers. It's costly. They can lose their licenses. This runs deep. They are essentially aiming to crush the tobacco industry, and that is very apparent with reading this. There's even a section in there that discusses jail time as one of the potential penalties. So they are very serious about this, and it's concerning. They are definitely misusing law enforcement resources. They don't have another arm of enforcement. So what else are they going to say? Well, we're going to make sure that law enforcement enforces this on our behalf. There's, I think, just kind of the ethical and personal freedom issue, right? At the heart of these bills is a massive overreach into consumer choice. Free Americans have consumer choice as a capitalist system, and this is being absolutely robbed from Californians in America. So yeah, I think this is a major issue. I have been personally in touch with the CRA. If you're not aware of the CRA, they are the Cigar Rights of America. They are a group that helps defend cigar rights. They engage in assisting with these types of issues, whether just via letter writing or kind of more intensive legal actions that they do. So in talking to them, they've actually let me know that they were involved in fighting this process from the beginning, and they are still involved. They're creating a plan of action to work against this and to see what they can do to change the current situation. So I am personally in touch with them. They will let me know in the next couple weeks what the plan of action is and where we can help. I think that this is likely going to be a call your congressperson, letter writing type of a situation, because this cannot stand. I think that I'm going to be continuing to keep you updated as there are updates coming out of the CRA regarding these bills. But certainly if you have questions, post them in the comments. If there are other bills that you're aware of and you'd like me to kind of do a little deep dive and check them out and make a video, happy to do that. Again, drop that in the comments. So as for now, I'm going to keep lighting up my stogie in defiance, and hope that the CRA and any other organizations that are working on this can help us with this. So that's all I've got for right now. As always, thanks for tuning in. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Share this with your friends. Let them know what's going on. The more people who are enthusiastic about our cigar rights and our hobby, I think the more we can potentially make a change in what's gone on in our California legislature. Thanks.